Well, before anyone blames the sound person for that kind of knocking sound, it's actually my knees. It's not the speakers. And that wobble in my voice is actually an ache in the pit of my stomach, which I affectionately called Jenny Tummy, after a lecturer in physio school back in the 90s who had it in for me, and she gave me this horrible ache in my tummy every time I saw her. So that nervousness is what you're hearing. But I'm so glad that you'll all have chosen to keep your love on, and you'll forgive my nervousness, because I know you're not actually that scary. Hopefully. Anyway, there's been a season over the past few years where I've fallen deeper and deeper into a dark space, characterized by being out of control and hopelessness. Let me read to you a few snippets from my quiet time journal that I've written over the last few years. First one, I'm at panic stations. There is no area of my life where I feel I am achieving anything or feel a sense of control. Nothing is giving me a sense of accomplishment or joy. I feel like it's all a show. I'm doing things to please other people. I feel so disconnected. It all feels so hopeless and too hard. A few months later, this week has been so hard. At work, I'm battling insecurities constantly that stop me from connecting and are causing me resentment. Fears and insecurities are causing me to lack confidence in who I am as a leader, a mum, a wife, and a friend. I can feel myself withdrawing even further. I'm tired of my life, one where I feel anxious and worried all the time. I don't know how to change my habits, and I don't know how to refresh my relationships with my kids or my husband. I am not the person I want to be, and I do not want another year of this. I feel so alone. I realize that fear and worry are consuming me, and they're robbing me of living in the destiny God has for me. And finally, I feel so withdrawn. I feel so alone. I feel so disconnected. Did you hear some of those recurring themes? Fear, insecurity, out of control, disconnection, and withdrawal. However, when I picked up this book that we've based our series on, last year there was a moment, a profoundly, potentially transformative moment, when I realized I was a victim to my own life and my own story. And what I read in the pages started to help me unveil why that might be and how I might be able to choose differently. I would hazard a guess that it's not just me. There might be someone out there or somebody who's listening in who might feel some stage they might have felt the same way I did. Or maybe you're sitting there feeling stuck right now. This week is our final series This week is the final in our series based around the concepts explored in Danny Silk's book, Keep Your Love On. We've touched on a number of ideas. However, it's really impossible to look at the richness and the deepness of this concepts found in this book in these short sermons. So I'd encourage anyone who's interested to invest in a copy and give it a read, or chat to me later. It's been transformational in my life, and hopefully some of my story today will show you how. Firstly though, let's recap over the last 3 weeks so that we all have a shared understanding and can build on that with today's message. In week 1, Keryn started our series by laying a foundation based on God's love. And we discovered that because God chooses us, we never ever have to worry about his side of the relationship. We are secure in his love. There is nothing we can do to make him love us more or less. And because of God's love for us, he has given us the power to choose. This gives us freedom and security to live out of, be led by, and choose love rather than fear. Sounds quite easy and it sounds very logical. However, if you're like me, the continued battle to choose love as my guide moment by moment is not easy. Allowing God's love to replace my worry, my fears, has been a very slow journey. which started when I chose to accept that God loves me. Full stop, no conditions, no fine print. I know this might seem like a trivial illustration, but for someone with a huge fear of flying, turbulent plane rides over the last recent trip I had to Cambodia saw me clinging to the promise from 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, because fear has to do with punishment, but perfect love drives out all fear. And even though I know more today than I have ever known that God's love is secure for me and that I'm learning to trust him with every detail, it doesn't stop me from being ravaged by fear that I have to choose to resist, surrender, and let go of. However, I'm grateful that God is showing me how to do this. And the good news is I no longer have to take tranquilizers on my flights to get me through, which is huge. You can ask Ryan. He'll tell you that. Leading on from this concept of fear versus love, we discovered from Keryn's sermon that relationships are founded on one of two goals, either disconnection, motivated by our fear, or connection, motivated by love. And keeping our love on needs to be our choice. And before we go any further, let me tell you that this concept of having the goal of either connection or disconnection in relationships was a giant slap in the face as I was reading this book. Here I was, a leader of a successful staff team at work, a long-standing member of this church community here, and part of a loving and supportive group of friends and family, but I felt super disconnected, unknown, and lonely. I realized that I had been choosing disconnection as a safety mechanism to protect me from my fears of rejection, and because of this, I had started to disappear. I understood that my heart was governed by fear, and a lot of what I was communicating was designed to hide what was going on inside of me, to the point that only a very few people knew me. I had to ask myself quite a few hard questions at this point. Why was I choosing fear to be my guide when I professed to be a Christ follower? Was I really responsible for the disconnection and loneliness I was feeling? Was I creating distance in the way I treated people? Ouch. I have to tell you that I started to feel like I had a black eye, metaphorically, of course. In our second week, Will walked us through Jesus' last meal with his disciples and pointed out how choosing to love and serve demonstrates true power. He showed us that the communion service is a demonstration of Jesus choosing us and a tangible reminder that we get to make the same choice towards others. He encouraged us to break the handle off the love and the fear switch and choose to keep our love on, even when it's hard or messy, which it gets. And then last week, Richard challenged us to learn another language, or multiple languages, in order for our connections with others to really display love that they will hear. The concept of the 5 love languages was not a new concept. It was first expressed by Gary Chapman in 1995, and I have one of his books, hot off his press, here to give away for the first person who can stand up and tell me all 5 of the love languages. Shout it out. Yes, nice job. Didn't even need any help. Good job, Fee. Awesome. If we fail to communicate in a way that communicates love in a language other people can hear, then we create a whole lot of anxiety. Let's take a quick look at the screen to illustrate how.
Das Gerät, das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
I know, it's pretty corny. However, when we get the love languages right, in our relationships, it's like having a superpower. So I encourage you to explore that a little bit more. So today, where are you going, we ask? Well, firstly, I want to unpack the concepts of powerful versus powerless people. And then I want to delve into some communication styles and leave you with some practical tips that will help ensure your communication is leading to connection and deeper intimacy with those around you. So just like there are two goals for relationships, disconnection or connection, there are also two types of people in relationships, powerful and powerless. And before your mind fills with images of overbearing, authoritative, oppressive power figures, let me tell you that the definition of powerful from Danny's book is nothing like that. I've asked these two guys and Keely to give me a hand to illustrate that. So thanks, guys. Awesome. Firstly, let's explore our powerful person. They are responsible for their choices, and they create an environment around them. I think you've got the wrong ones, Keely. Oh, yeah, sorry. That's all right. Let's start again. I'll grab them. There you go. I think they go from the top. Awesome. So, let's explore our powerful person. Firstly, they are responsible for their choices. They create a respectful environment around them by showing respect. They control themselves because they know that's the only person they've been asked to control. They choose who they want to be with, what they'll pursue in life, and where they'll be. And they refuse to be victims. They value and understand what is going on inside of them, and they communicate that honestly to those around them. They use powerful language like, I will, I won't, I did, I do. And they choose connection at all times. They also choose to keep their love on at all times. They set boundaries to protect their time, their energy, their resources, and their priority relationships. And in essence, they create life around them according to the priorities that they have that grow that love. Let me be clear though, boundaries are all about what I do about me and my choices and my time, and they're not ways of keeping people at a distance. Once again in reading this, it struck me just how much I had allowed myself to turn my love off in order to distance myself, punish others, control others, or excuse unforgiveness that I was harboring. And for justifiable reasons, I thought. I felt the Holy Spirit convict me that what I thought was a safe boundary was actually unforgiveness towards a number of people, including my dad, for things that had happened over the years. I had to ask myself why. If Jesus said we should forgive as we have been forgiven, and that we should love just like he loved us, was it then okay for me to turn my love off? Who had given me permission to do that? I can tell you that I wasn't very happy about the answers to these questions, and I was starting to feel a little bit beaten up. In contrast to our powerful person, our powerless person abdicates all responsibility for their choices. They create an environment based on anxiety, and they control others because their life is often out of control. They blame others for their life messes, and they approach relationships as consumers. Their communication is out of fear of the truth. And they use language that's powerless, like, I'll try, I have to, oh, I can't. They use nagging, anger, crying to manipulate, and they create disconnection by doing this. Fear, mistrust, punishment, and misery all go hand in hand with a powerless person. Their life is boundaryless and often just reacts to what's going on around them. Thanks, Keely. Often when we get hurt, scared, feel powerless, or offended, our natural response is to turn our love off. This fills our space with fear and is very powerless. And unfortunately, I have to admit, I received another face slapping when I examined my inner thoughts, many of my relationships, including my marriage and relationship with my kids, and realized how my attitudes and behaviors mirrored the ugliness that you see here on this powerless victim. I felt like I had a couple of black eyes by now, and I was heading for a knockout. I can't say I was very excited by the beating I was getting. However, rather than retreat into powerlessness and self-loathing, which is usually a position of fear that I was comfortable with and had been stuck in for years, I started to listen to that still small voice that said I was loved, I was cherished, and even despite my powerless behaviors, I started to allow God and His love to guide me on a journey to becoming powerful. So let's look at how these two types of people, our powerful and powerless, work out in relationships, either family relationships, marriage relationships, or friendships. So, if we have two powerless people in a relationship, then this is going to be characterized by controlling behaviors. Neither one wants to take responsibility for anything, and they want to blame everyone else for what they are feeling or acting. They believe that someone out there is responsible for their life, not them. I must admit that language I heard coming out of my mouth often started with, "You made me feel," or "I'm out of control," or "I have so much to do." These are all hallmarks of a powerless person. On the other hand, if we have a powerless person coupled with a powerful person, we now have a dependent relationship. Powerful people know that their inner feelings and their inner life determines their thoughts and their actions, and they watch over their hearts, they guard their hearts. In contrast, the powerless person lets the powerful person work harder on their life than they want to, and they let them take responsibility for everything else that goes on. So, for a relationship to be healthy, it cannot be founded on how much you are perceived to be liked by the other person. This only leads to conditions. "He'll only like me if I don't put on any more weight," or "She'll only like me if I buy that new car," and you can see where that's going to get you. It also can't be founded on "they chose me," because what happens when they choose not you? Instead, it needs to be between two powerful people who choose each other and then take full responsibility for that choice every day to keep their love on, creating a relationship based on freedom. In August this year, I attended the Keep Your Love On conference in Tauranga, where Danny presented a lot of the material from his book. Even though I've been familiar with it because I've read it and I've listened to his podcasts, this quote stood out for me above anything else. "There are no powerless people in the kingdom of heaven, only the bad habit of irresponsibility." Whoa, really? That's very harsh, I thought. I chewed on this one, I thought about this one. I wondered, what about all those people who'd been ravaged by disease or war or disasters? I pushed back. I wasn't happy until I started to think about all those people in history I admire, like Corrie ten Boom or Mahatma Gandhi, or recently in my lifetime, Johnny Erickson Tada, or true life figures like William Wallace from the movie Braveheart, or my favorite, Oskar Schindler from Schindler's List, or even many of the people that I met in Cambodia and have fallen in love with, or people sitting here in this room today. Those that had risen above circumstances that seemed unbearable were those that had remained powerful and taken responsibility for the responses. If powerlessness is rooted in fear, then Danny was right, and I had to accept it. There is no reason why a Christ follower should ever be irresponsible if we are allowing love to be our guide. Again, I took a beating. I thought I was being responsible by taking care of everything, but on reflection, I was just controlling and creating anxiety everywhere I went. I was letting my fears rule me, and it was destroying my life and relationships. I needed my mind to be renewed, and for me, 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind," became something that I recited, put up as reminders around my home, and leant on constantly to help me as I developed the habit of becoming powerful, resting in God's love, and choosing connection. And I don't know if anyone else needs that text today, but it's a goodie. So, if love is the foundation and powerfulness is the building blocks, then communication has to be the mortar that holds all our healthy relationships together. I don't know about you, but I've been involved in too many conversations that have gotten heated, created misconception, or ended in disconnection. Danny would say that disconnection is caused not when we stop communicating, because we're always communicating, even when we're not talking, but rather it's caused when we don't get it right. Often the more familiar the relationship, the less we feel it necessary to listen and just automatically presume or preempt. I know I've been guilty of this on a number of occasions, thinking about what to say next or finishing people's sentences, not even listening to what they've been saying from the heart. For communication to be effective, however, and to grow healthy relationships, we have to change the goal of our communication from agreement and disconnection to understanding and connection. And before you disagree with me, like I did with Danny originally, let's try and uncover what this means. Firstly, if agreement is the goal, then one person's views and feelings and perceptions have to disappear in order to realize this goal. It sets us up for arguments, convincing or controlling, and straight away causes breakdown, because I don't see this the same way that you see things. And I have to take control of the conversation to try to convince you of my perspective. One person does just disappear. And we start to fight over the issues and the perceptions, and we miss the truth of what's going on inside. Convincing, controlling, and arguments create fear in our relationship when I'm not welcome to exist, and it's essentially a message of rejection. So in order to prioritize our connection, the goal of communication must be to understand. I want to understand your perspective of truth and what is happening inside of you, and I want to share so you can understand mine. Pursuing the goal of understanding will help progress through increasingly deeper levels of intimacy and honesty, leading to intimacy in our relationships. Better expressed as into me you see, because I show you. I need to tell you what's going on for me inside, because often what you see on the outside is not me. It's just the way I've been behaving. God's design of intimacy enables us to both remain in the relationship. You don't try to convince me away or replace my ideas with yours, and I don't do that to you. We can both have our ideas together, and this can help us solve things together. It's a response of this powerful person who wants to create relationships based on love, trust, safety, vulnerability, and acceptance. I get to be me in the relationship, and you get to have the freedom to be you. When our goal is disconnection, our style of communication will be how I manifest those fears of rejection, of being out of control, or being vulnerable. And there are 3 common communication styles manifested by a powerless person, and they all increase anxiety in relationships. Firstly, we have a passive communicator. They communicate out of the core belief that you matter, but I don't. I try to convince everyone that I don't have any needs. I don't have a desire here. I don't have a preference. Whatever you want is okay. And my fear of appearing needy or selfish keeps me from sharing, starts to lead to bitterness, hurt, offense, or toxic relationships when it appears that no one even considers my feelings. It increases anxiety and fear because there's actually not even a person in the relationship. Danny would go so far as to say a passive communicator is a lying coward. Next, we have an aggressive communicator. They communicate out of the core belief that I matter, you do not. They usually get their way in a controlling, aggressive, overbearing manner. And then we have the blend of the 2 styles, a passive-aggressive communicator, with the core belief that you matter, well, not really. These are the most devious of communicators, and often, unfortunately, this is the style of communication that Christians choose as their drug of choice. Sarcasm, innuendo, veiled truth keep you from seeing what's really going on inside. I don't know about you, but I saw myself in all of these 3 styles of communication, especially the passive style. No wonder I had started to disappear. I was becoming a no one in my relationships in order not to appear needy or weak. And if you ask my husband and kids, they'll tell you that I've tried to control them, coerce, and manipulate them with tears, yelling, and even the silent treatment, things that I'm not very proud of. However, this is where the door to my transformation started to open wider, not close. Understanding how I behave and why I behave that way doesn't mean I have to stay doing those things. I know old habits die hard, but that's a great thing I'm learning about God's grace. It's new each morning. It enables me to see a slip up as another opportunity to receive more grace and to practice. I've made a conscious and deliberate effort to form new habits over the past year to keep my love on and move towards communicating as a powerful person. Do you notice the green today? Just saying. That was intentional, by the way. That was a choice. So what does communicating like a powerful person look like? Well, powerful people are not afraid to trust, and they realize that it's an exchange of truth in our relationship that sets us free to be ourselves. Being willing to be vulnerable offers the opportunity for love. When I don't welcome vulnerability, I create a space where the message is, everything is fine as long as I'm in control, which is not great. Recently, I reflected on this very concept when a close work colleague, who I respect and admire, was brave enough to say, after many years of working with me, that she'd only just started to get to know me because I'd let my guard down and started to share from my heart. She then went on to say that she loved me even more for it. That was what I'd been craving all along, love and connection, but I hadn't known how to experience it until I started to learn to be powerful. And just saying, we need those brave people in our lives who can point out the blind spots when we can't see them ourselves. Powerful people also approach connection and communication determined to keep their love on and with a view to understand and honour the other person's perspective, beliefs and ideas, based on the core belief that you matter and so do I. This assertive communication style is an exchange of truth in a hope of forming a bond based on honour and respect. In assertive communication, I need to tell you about me, and you get to tell me about you, not vice versa. I don't tell you what's going on with you because I don't know. And I know it's not the Kiwi way, guys, but we actually need to start talking a bit more about our feelings. It's not needy or weak to say what's going on inside. That is the key to intimacy and deepening our relationships that grow connection, and I know that's what we all want. So here's my practical tip for the day. You've got a handout there, and hopefully you've been tracking along, filling in the blanks. Too much information, sorry guys, I love information. But here's a practical tip which is on the back of that handout. To be an assertive communicator, we need to start with an I message. I feel a feeling, when something happens, and I need to feel a different feeling. Let me give you a couple of examples of what it is and maybe an example of what it's not. Okay, here we go. This happens for me and my family sometimes. I feel disappointed when I've cooked dinner for 6 o'clock and no one is home to eat it. Any other mums feel the same? I don't know. I need to feel like I'm a priority in the family. Or another one to my teenage son. Sorry, son. I feel anxious about you driving alone at night. I need to feel reassured that you are safe because you are precious to me. And I don't know if anyone else feels this frustration. I feel frustrated when there is no more toilet paper on the toilet roll. I need to feel supported around this home. Once you've said it, just leave it. Let the other person work out how they're going to meet that need and respond to that feeling. But just a word of caution. You're showing the person your experience, not trying to convince them about what it should be or to tell them what they're doing wrong. If you can replace feel with think, then it's not actually a feeling statement. Let me give you a illustration. I feel that you're a selfish idiot. Is not a feeling, because I can replace feel with think. I think that you're a selfish idiot. That's just going to create a whole lot of anxiety. But if I can tell you how I feel, we can start to talk about the issues, the real issues. Now, it's my experience that children behave their emotions, as I'm sure other parents out there can agree. However, if we start to behave our emotions as adults, it becomes more and more problematic. That is why we need to learn, and it takes practice, to communicate our feelings instead, with words. So today we've unpacked what it means to be powerful versus powerless. We've identified ways of communicating that create connection or disconnection. And we've looked at that practical way to start building intimate connections by showing people what's inside. For those of you that know me, and I alluded to it earlier, I'm the queen of information. I read tons of self-help books. I always have about 6 or 7 sitting on my bedside cabinet. I have bookshelves in my house, much to Ryan's disgust because he hates books. I listen to heaps of podcasts. I go to seminars and I write copious notes. However, what I have learned is all that good information does not equal transformation until I, through the power of the Holy Spirit, started to let it take root in my heart. And I started to take this information and I started to make some new choices. I decided to prioritize family over work or others. And I'm still on this journey, guys. Don't judge me. I decided to put some boundaries around my energy because it's not limitless. And I started to choose to get involved in things that I felt were led by God according to my giftings that He'd given me. I also started opening up and learning ever so slowly how to be vulnerable. And today I want to offer all of you that opportunity to respond. Also, if you're feeling the Spirit speak to your heart. If you, like me, want to start or continue on a journey towards being powerful, then I'd ask you to stand with me as we read some declarations over our lives. Remember, you are powerful people. This is a choice. There is no have-tos, there is no musts. It's just an invitation to stand together and commit to living a powerful life in the freedom that God has given us to keep our love on. I am powerful. I can and will choose to love. Read it with me if you want to. Pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice. I don't need to blame others. I am not a victim. I am not stuck. I have choices. I can create and protect connection. And I can keep my love on no matter what others do.